shut up, buttwad. I'm trying to watch this crap.
It tasted good.
Damn it, this pisses me off. If we don't see some boobs or some explosions or some poop, that'd be cool. Poop. Yeah.
You're not supposed to understand Boogiepop Phantom. It doesn't start at the beginning. It doesn't end at the end. And by the time you realize what episode you're watching, it's already over. At first, it feels like something went wrong, like you missed an episode, or started in the middle. But the truth is, this isn't a mistake. It's by design. Boogiepop Phantom is confusing, fragmented, muted, because it's not trying to tell a story. It's trying to show you a state of mind. The entire world feels faded, like a memory you don't remember. Time folds in on itself. Characters vanish mid-conversation. People act like strangers, even when they know each other. This isn't an anime about heroes. It's about the silence between people who are too afraid to speak. The structure of Boogiepop Phantom reflects how trauma warps memory. When something hurts enough, your mind doesn't record it in a straight line. It stores it, like shattered glass, in fragments, in echoes, and in dreams. So the story doesn't move forward. It reverberates like a psychic echo you're trying to ignore, but can't. Everything looks off. The color palette is yellow and sick. The music doesn't build. It lingers. Conversations don't resolve. They just fade. It's not scary because someone's chasing you. It's scary because nothing ever really happens. And when it does, no one reacts. If you're trying to make sense of the plot, you'll get lost. But if you start to ask, why does this feel like the inside of a panic attack? Why does this remind me of that feeling I couldn't name in high school? Then you're watching it the way it's meant to be watched. You're not supposed to understand Boogiepop Phantom because understanding would make it easier to forget. And this show was made so you wouldn't. There was a flash of light, tall enough to touch the clouds, bright enough to bleach the sky, and then nothing. No emergency response, no cleanup, no public mourning, just a city that got quieter. They say it happened at the radio tower. A psychic shockwave. The moment the world cracked open just wide enough. The let something through. Officially, it was a blip, a power surge. Unofficially, the city started mutating. Not visibly, not instantly, but psychically. People began to change. A girl who hears death approaching. A boy who sees people for what they really are. A man who begins to rot from the inside. They called it evolution. They were wrong. These aren't superpowers. They're symptoms. Symptoms of a city trying to repress what it refuses to confront. The explosion didn't alter physics. It warped time. The past bleeds into the present. People forget each other, or worse, remember each other too late. Casualty collapses. Memory blends. The world doesn't feel wrong. It feels erased. No one talks about the light. Not in public. Not even in private. Because if you acknowledge it, you might remember what it took from you. So the city does what all cities do when things get too painful. It forgets. But the thing about buried trauma is, it doesn't stay buried. And when the city refuses to face it, something else always shows up to do it for them. Something wearing a black cloak, with no real name, and no real face. Boogiepop appears when people break. They say Boogiepop appears when the world is in danger. But what if the world they're protecting is you? They don't save people from monsters. They erase monsters that people created themselves. They don't smile. They don't feel. You speak in riddles. That's because Boogiepop isn't a person. They're a defense mechanism. Personality fragment that takes over when someone can escape or cope. A personality fragment that takes over when someone can't cope. Boogiepop isn't justice. Boogiepop isn't dissociation. Boogiepop isn't disassociation. A psychic wall that separates your pain from your conscious self. The moment your mind says, you can't handle this, Boogiepop steps in. When it appears, it's not a blessing. It's a warning. They don't stop bad things from happening. They appear after the damage is already done. Boogiepop doesn't fight to protect the world. They exist because the world was already lost. Ask 5 people who Boogiepop is, and you'll get 5 different answers entirely. A spirit, a killer, a ghost, a god. That's because Boogiepop is collective repression made real. A story we tell ourselves to survive the weight of pain we never processed. Boogiepop doesn't appear when the world ends. They appear when you start to fracture. Because somewhere inside of us, we've all had that voice. The one that says, "Let me handle it. You just forget this ever happened." There's no villain, no evasion, no big climactic battle. Just a city full of teenagers, quietly dying inside. Some disappear, some stop talking, some hear voices, some become something else entirely. Each episode isn't part of a bigger plot. It's a case study, a profile of one kid's breaking point, one glimpse at how repression mutates into monstrosity. Where are the teachers, the parents, the therapists? They're there, but they don't see it, or worse, they refuse to. The adults in this world don't understand it. The adults in this world either don't understand, or or they've been broken too long to care. The most terrifying part about Boogiepop Phantom isn't the monsters. It's the quiet acceptance of despair. The kids aren't fighting back. They're numbing themselves. They don't want to save the world. They just want to stop feeling like this. And then, one by one, they break. Some forget who they are. Some try to become someone else. Some go looking for the source of pain. And some become it. This is not a coming of age. It's coming undone. The city isn't a place. It's a pressure. And when it gets too heavy to carry, something inside you splits. And that's when the real horror begins. In most stories, a monster is something other, a threat, a villain, a curse. In Boogiepop Phantom, monsters aren't born. They're made. They used to be someone. A classmate, a neighbor, a forgotten friend. The transformation, it's not into evil. It's into something broken, beyond despair. It's into something broken, beyond repair. Take the manticore, a creature born from a failed experiment in human evolution. She kills, yes, but not out of malice, out of a twisted hunger for connection. She tries to love. She tries to belong. But she wasn't made for that anymore. And that's the tragedy. For the boy who wanted to disappear so badly that he literally melted into the background. He wasn't a threat. He was a cry for help that no one answered. Tell me, is that a villain? Or is that a casualty? The monsters in this story don't roar. They whisper. They want to be seen. They want someone to tell them you're not alone. But no one ever does. So they become something else. Something we all call monstrous. Just so we don't have to admit they're one of us. Boogiepop doesn't kill monsters to save the world. They end suffering. They are mercy, but a cold kind. Because by the time Boogiepop arrives, there's usually nothing left to save. They weren't evil. They were exiled from empathy. And the longer we pretend we can't see people like that, the more of them we'll create. There are no jump scares in Boogiepop Phantom, but it's terrifying in the way real life is, because it understands something we don't like to admit. Pain doesn't die. It lingers. And when enough of it builds up, it becomes something else. The ghosts in this story aren't dead people. They're unfelt feelings, regrets, fears, shame, loneliness so deep it reshapes reality. When we repress those things, they don't disappear. They become phantoms. This isn't a story about monsters. It's a story about a generation trying to survive without being seen. A story where growing up means forgetting what it means to feel human. Boogiepop watches, but never intervenes. Because they only appear when it's already too late. We don't tell stories about trauma because we want to. We tell them because we have to. Because if we don't, the silence grows. Boogiepop Phantom doesn't end with catharsis. There's no happy resolution. Just a sense that something shifted. A wound surfaced. A name was spoken that had been buried for years. And sometimes that's all you can hope for. But there is no pleasure here. Just recognition. That's what makes Boogiepop Phantom so painful. And so necessary. It doesn't ask you to understand everything. It just asks you to feel something. Because if you don't, the phantoms will.